Hello, everyone. Welcome to my presentation. This is called Planning for Success, and it's a reflection by myself, Jared Jeffries. So, real brief, I'm just going to go over the unit plan itself. These are the questions that I and the state of Alabama both wanted to ask and need students to understand. So you have up here the ideas and concepts, you have essential questions, what students will understand and know after these lessons, after this unit, and what students will be able to do. And these are some of the lesson activities. I broke them down class by class. I have a total of 8 classes. I just kind of wanted to give an brief example of what I was doing. I have it broken down topic by topic. A lecture, map activity. Uh, I have a documentary, um, another documentary, discussions, and so on and so on. And I actually have them broken down uh, by time, the length of time, and each class is 80 minutes in length. But now for the reflection part itself. And the first question that was asked was, were your lessons implemented as you had planned? What helped them go as planned? Were your lessons implemented differently than you planned? Why or why not? And for me, for the most part, lessons they went as planned. Staying organized, that was the key for me in making sure the lessons uh, they went smooth and moving. Excuse me, in a chronological order. The only hiccups were changes in the schedule for one of the days. We had a fire alarm go off, and we were outside, so I actually didn't even get to have my second class come in and do it for the day, go over that lesson for the day. But that was all right because I had built in 2 extra days just in case something of this nature happened or I was out sick, something like that. Uh, it's nice to have all your classes when you're teaching a lesson on the same page, but sometimes that is just not possible. Things are going to happen, things are going to occur, and again, that's why I built in these 2 days because uh, I wanted that flexibility in case something happened. Were your lessons implemented differently than you planned? And again, not really. Everything that I did essentially went according to plan. What went well in the lesson and why? Uh, for me, the more I got into the lessons, the more I took my time with the lectures and framing discussion questions in the right manner. I used Prezi, which really helped me pace myself, and it broke up the monotony of a lecture. We all know that if a teacher just gets up there and talks the whole time, students aren't really going to be engaged because they're not doing anything. There's nothing that they have to really do. Uh, so as I went through each lesson, I would tweak things just a little bit differently. I would ask questions um, a little bit different, and I'll explain that in another slide. Um, but for the most part, the use of technology really made things go smooth. Now, luckily, I didn't have any network issues where the internet was down. Um, because a couple weeks prior to doing this unit, I actually had the network go down and I wasn't able to access uh, this lesson, get it, my presentation, my Prezi pulled up on my ViewSonic LCD monitor that I like to use. Uh, and that really would have hindered the lesson. So I didn't have any hiccups when it came to that, and that allowed the lesson to go really well. What did not go well in the lesson? Honestly, I feel like I could have done my transitions a lot better. Uh, this is a World War II is a topic uh, that I really love. I really love talking about it. And for me, I want students to know every single detail, but I know at the same time they don't need to know every single little detail about World War II because they're not history majors. They're not college students. I need to adhere to the standards and the objectives that I've already set forth. And the first class is what really uh, made me realize that. Again, I went into every single little detail. And so once when I did that, all of my activities later on in the class, I kind of rushed through the instruction or I rushed the activity itself. I cut off the time limit for it. So rather than having 20 minutes, I might have had 15 minutes or 10 minutes. And again, that was class one, first class of the day. But once I was able to get past that and get myself in a rhythm and pace myself and understand I don't need to cover this uh, small detail for 5 minutes because it really has no bearing on the war itself other than to know it. And then I have the next question here. If you were teaching this lesson multiple times during the day, what did you do differently and why? And yes, I did teach each lesson multiple times a day. I discussed everything in great detail with the first lesson of the day, and later on, I would elaborate on the more important details. This was in the beginning of the unit, not so much when I got further into the unit. Uh, Again, I love teaching this unit, and I feel that every detail is equally important, so I would go into extended detail. And I could see that student interest and engagement declined in the first class, and so it was affecting my timing and transition. Uh, but one thing that I would say I did differently um, was that in my first class, I have uh, a 15-to-1 male to female student ratio. So showing them scenes, raw footage, which there's so many resources that are available in regards to video on World War II, was that I was able to show them small 1 to 2 minute video clips where I was discussing tanks, showing scenes of kamikazes flying into aircraft carriers, things of that nature. But in the second class, the student makeup is actually uh, all Hispanic. And so what I did differently for them, I would change the wordage or the vernacular that I used in my lectures. I would basically simplify the English terms that I use. I would say I think 7 of the 19 students that I have are English language learners, and two of those students, excuse me, two of those students cannot speak any English at all. So what I do to help them is I translate my lectures. I put it in a simple text format, and I translate it into Spanish, and then I number them as I'm going through each point. And as I'm going through the lecture, I will point out in Spanish. So I say uno, dos, tres, so they know to follow along where I'm at in the lecture. And while they don't understand what I'm speaking, they can read what I am talking about. And the next question, what did you do the same? Pretty much everything I did was the same. The only difference was, again, what I mentioned in the last question. The content stayed the same, the questions stayed the same. More so, I simplified things where my Hispanic students could understand them a little bit better. And what surprised me in my lesson, and that was the connections that students made from our previous lessons in World War One, and they were able to draw conclusions about World War Two. Now, in between World War One and World War Two, I had 2 units where I discussed the Roaring Twenties and the Great Depression / New Deal era, and they recalled that knowledge, and that's what surprised me most, because they were able to draw those conclusions based on scaffolding techniques that I had used uh, earlier in the year and really throughout the year. One thing that I talked about when it came to conflict during World War One, which students actually remembered and repeated to me as I was going throughout the lesson, was what are the 3 main conflicts, or what are the 3 reasons that conflict occurs throughout history? And that's, if you don't look like me, if you don't speak my language, and if you don't believe what I believe, then conflict tends to occur. And the fact that they were able to see and come to conclusions about World War II in regards to such things as the Holocaust, that was what really surprised me. That they really uh, grabbed a hold of those scaffolding techniques that I had used, and I purposefully used them, and they were able to draw those conclusions from that. And then, of course, my overall impressions of this unit itself, the unit plan project. Uh, Quoting Alan Lake in here, we've all heard this before: failing to plan is planning to fail. And it's a very true statement. You know, for us as educators, it's important to create and plan for lessons, because there needs to be targets and objectives that students can identify. Otherwise, there's no culmination point for their learning. And if we're going to develop better students in regards to the realm of social studies and the humanities, we have to keep them simple at this age, uh, make them understandable. And that doesn't mean that we should not be challenging our students, but at the same time, we need to be making sure that, you know, we're creating plans not only for our students, but we're creating them for ourselves, because sometimes as educators and teachers, uh, we can go off on a wild goose chase and we get behind, and then sometimes we might have to cut things out that we wanted to discuss. And this creates somewhat of a pacing guide for us in terms of a unit plan, creating activities where we're uh, trying to make complete students, where we're incorporating critical thinking skills, problem solving skills, writing skills, um, being involved, engaged in a lesson, working on their geography skills when it comes to map activities. All those things we plan out for them, and it doesn't just happen by divine intervention or miracles. Again, everything has to be planned out. And I feel that through this project, it's really opened my eyes to make sure that there are clear objectives, that each activity has a purpose and a reason. And overall, I feel that I will be better off as an educator because learning how to do a unit plan in this manner. So, thank you for your attention. Everyone, have a great day.